By 2:30 in the afternoon on Monday, March 9th, 2026, the very first day of NFL free agency's legal tampering window, the Cleveland Browns had already lost the best linebacker they had on their roster, the man who had started every single game for them in 2025, the man who had picked off 3 passes and returned 2 of them for touchdowns. The man who had put together the greatest statistical season of his entire 7-year NFL career was gone. Not at the end of a long negotiation, not after a dramatic last-minute bidding war. Gone by 2:30 in the afternoon on day 1, before most teams had even made their first phone call of the day. Devin Bush was gone. And when the notification hit every phone in Cleveland simultaneously, when every Browns fan who had spent the last 6 months telling themselves this defense was the one thing they could count on in 2026 read that headline, the reaction was somewhere between heartbroken and furious, because they had been promised that keeping this defense together was the priority. That GM Andrew Berry had entered the offseason with a singular stated priority: keep the number 4 ranked defense together while fixing the offense. The defense had been the foundation of everything the team had accomplished in 2025, and Berry was not shy about expressing his commitment to preserving it. Bleacher Report. Number 4 in the entire NFL. A defense that had been statistically elite in a season where the team went 5-12. A defense that had propped up an offense that could barely score 15 points a game. A defense built around the young and dynamic Carson Schwesinger, who had won NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year honors and announced himself as a generational talent at the linebacker position. And playing alongside Schwesinger, serving as the veteran presence, the instinctual playmaker, the man with the football IQ and the closing speed to complement everything Schwesinger was doing athletically, was Devin Bush. Bush had the best year of his 7-year NFL career in 2025, starting all 17 games for the Browns. He set personal bests with 125 tackles, 3 interceptions, 2 returned for touchdowns, 2 forced fumbles, and 8 passes defensed. He had 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits, and a fumble recovery. He played 83% of the defensive snaps. Those are not the statistics of a complementary piece. Those are the statistics of a starter in the truest sense of the word. 125 tackles, 3 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns, 2 forced fumbles, all while playing beside a defensive rookie of the year and helping anchor a unit that finished ranked 4th in the entire NFL, in a league where defense wins championships. But to understand the full weight of what Bush accomplished in Cleveland in 2025, you have to understand what he had been through to get there. Because Devin Bush's story is not the story of a player who arrived at the top and stayed. It is the story of a player who arrived at the top, fell off a cliff, was written off by an entire city, bounced around the league looking for anyone willing to take a chance on him, and then quietly, without fanfare, became exactly what he was supposed to be when the Pittsburgh Steelers made him a first-round pick 7 years ago. Bush was initially a first-round pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2019. He arrived in Pittsburgh with enormous expectations, a fast, instinctive linebacker who had been a key piece of the University of Michigan's elite defense. His first season was genuinely promising, but in 2020, everything changed. He suffered a torn ACL that would alter the trajectory of his entire career. ESPN. Torn ACL. The words that end careers before they truly begin. Bush spent months in rehabilitation. He came back, but the Steelers, watching him struggle to regain the form that had made him a first-round selection, ultimately declined his 5th-year option and let him walk. A former first-round pick, still in his mid-20s, leaving Pittsburgh without a real second act. After his departure from Pittsburgh, Bush spent 2023 with the Seattle Seahawks on a 1-year deal before signing with the Browns on another 1-year prove-it contract. He played well enough in 2024 after taking over for the injured Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and was re-signed to yet another 1-year prove-it contract with Cleveland for the 2025 season. ESPN. 2 prove-it contracts in a row. That is the NFL's version of being told every single year that you are not worth a long-term investment. That the only reason we have you is that last year you performed, and we need you to perform again this year before we will consider making any real commitment. It is a grinding, exhausting, financially precarious way to exist in professional football. And Bush responded to that uncertainty with the best football of his life. Daniel Popper of The Athletic had projected Bush to receive a 3-year, $47 million deal on the open market, writing that Bush had outstanding athletic traits and had finally put his game fully together in 2025. He noted Bush's sideline-to-sideline speed, his eyes and zone coverage, and his lightning-quick trigger in pursuit. $47 million. That was the projection from one of the most respected analytics-driven journalists covering the NFL. The market was there, the performance had earned it, and the Cleveland Browns, to their credit, reportedly wanted to keep him. Barry had said all the right things about defense being the priority. The organization had signaled its intention. But when the money arrived, when the Chicago Bears walked in on day one with a 3-year, $30 million offer that included $21 million guaranteed, Cleveland could not compete. The Chicago Bears agreed to a 3-year, $30 million deal with linebacker Devin Bush on the very first day of 2026 NFL free agency, with $21 million guaranteed. Bush was expected to be a plug-and-play starter in the middle of the Bears' defense. Bush arrives in Chicago after a career-best season with the Cleveland Browns. Career-best season, after leaving Cleveland, heading to Chicago. The story of Devin Bush ends in Cleveland with a goodbye that the city did not see coming this quickly, to a team that plays in the same conference that will show up on the schedule. A linebacker who became elite in a Browns uniform is now wearing a Bears uniform and getting paid by an organization that understood his value in a way that the Browns' financial constraints simply did not allow them to match. Bush was believed to be a high priority for the Browns to re-sign on defense. The loss was significant. Bush had been the experienced, instinctual complement to the young and explosive Schwesinger that made Cleveland's linebacker core the best in the AFC North in 2025. Gone by 2:30 on day one. Now, here's where the story shifts, because the Browns front office did not panic. They did not scramble to the next name on the list and overpay for a lesser option. They had a plan, and that plan had a very specific name attached to it, and a very specific relationship that made the whole thing work. His name was Quincy Williams, and the man who made it happen was Browns defensive coordinator Mike Rutenberg. To understand why Quincy Williams' landing in Cleveland felt less like a consolation prize and more like a strategic masterstroke, at least from the perspective of people who understand linebacker play and what Rutenberg's defense needs, you have to understand who Quincy Williams actually is. Not the stats, not the contract number, the human being, the full story. After losing his mother at a young age, Quincy Williams' road to NFL stardom took many different twists and turns. He was never in the spotlight, always overshadowed, always playing from behind, always having to carve his own path without the advantage of being the obvious choice, the celebrated prospect, the sure thing. Quincy Williams was born on August 28, 1996. He is the older brother of Quinnen Williams, the defensive lineman who spent years as one of the most dominant interior pass rushers in the NFL. But while Quinnen arrived in the league as the 3rd overall pick, with all the attention and investment and guaranteed money that comes with that designation, Quincy took a road that was longer, harder, and in many ways more revealing of his character. He played college football at Murray State, not Alabama, not Georgia, not one of the programs that produce Pro Bowl players on an annual basis. Murray State, a football championship subdivision program in western Kentucky, a school where you play in front of crowds of 10,000 people, and the scouts who show up are doing it as a favor, not because they genuinely expect to find an NFL starter. Williams was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 3rd round with the 98th overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft. U.S. Embassy and Consulates in China. 3rd round out of an FCS program is a genuine achievement. It means someone with a clipboard and a stopwatch saw something in that Murray State linebacker that they believed was worth a day 2 pick. But Jacksonville was not the right environment for that belief to be validated. The Jaguars were in the middle of one of the most chaotic rebuilding periods in franchise history, and the young linebacker from Murray State did not get the coaching or the consistency he needed to develop. In 2 seasons for the Jaguars, Williams totaled just 59 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and 2 sacks. He was released before the start of the 2021 season. Fox News. Cut before the season even began. His NFL career, the thing he had worked toward through every Murray State practice, through every combine drill, through every film session, was over before it had really started. Most players who get cut by an NFL franchise and land on the waiver wire are never heard from again. They go to the XFL or the CFL, where they simply retire and move on with their lives. But on September 1st, 2021, something different happened. On September 1st, 2021, the New York Jets claimed Williams off waivers. He was not a high-priority acquisition. He was not the solution to a specific problem the Jets front office had identified. He was a body, a capable body with some athletic tools that they needed at the position and that cost them essentially nothing to acquire. What happened next was the kind of transformation that happens when a talented player finally finds the right environment, the right coaching, the right teammates, and the right system. Quincy Williams arrived in New York and immediately became a different football player. In his first year, primarily playing in the middle of the Jets' defense, Williams tallied 110 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, and 3 forced fumbles. Fox News. 110 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles. As a waiver wire pickup, as a player who had been cut by Jacksonville, as a man who nobody in the league had fought to acquire. And he did this while playing next to his brother Quinnen in one of the most emotionally significant professional moments either of them had ever experienced. On October 3, 2021, the Williams siblings became the first pair of brothers with sacks in the same game for the same team since sacks became an official stat in 1982. They combined for 19 tackles in the Jets' 27-24 overtime victory over the Tennessee Titans. 2 brothers, both starting in the same NFL game, both recording sacks on the same afternoon. The older brother, who had been cut and claimed off waivers. The younger brother, the 3rd overall pick and the star of the franchise. Together on the same field, making history in the same game. That is the kind of moment that a documentary film is built around, and it was only the beginning. In 2023, Williams bounced back to record a career high in tackles with 139, a career high in tackles for loss with 15, and his first career interception. He also earned his first All-Pro selection. His best season came in 2023 when he was named first-team All-Pro. The Jets' defense under Rutenberg and Saleh and Ulbrich was the #1 graded unit by PFF, the entire NFL, graded by the most rigorous statistical analysts in football, and the New York Jets' defense was at the very top. And Quincy Williams was one of the primary reasons why. First team All-Pro, not second team, not honorable mention, first team. One of the top 3 linebackers in all of professional football according to the Associated Press voters who make that determination every year. The waiver wire pickup from Murray State had become one of the 3 best linebackers on the entire planet. His defensive coordinator through those 4 seasons in New York, the man who built that #1 defense, the man who put Williams in position to become an All-Pro, the man who understood his game more deeply than any coach he had ever played for, was Mike Rutenberg. linebackers coach from 2021 through 2024, the architect of everything Williams became in New York. And then the Jets changed everything. A new general manager arrived. A new coaching staff came in. The defensive core that had made New York one of the best defensive teams in the NFL was systematically dismantled. Quinnen Williams was traded. Sauce Gardner was traded. C.J. Mosley retired. And Quincy Williams, the man who had just been a first-team All-Pro 2 years prior, was benched. In a span of 24 hours during the 2025 season, Quincy Williams lost his starting job and lost his younger brother to a trade to another team. Williams had mixed emotions about it all. He understood the business of the league, but understanding something intellectually and feeling it in your chest are two different things. He said his brother got a new beginning. He was still trying to figure out what his own new beginning was going to look like. He was in the final year of his 3-year, $18 million contract with the Jets, an extension he had earned with his All-Pro performance, and the new regime had essentially made clear that they were moving in a different direction. The Aaron Glenn, Darren Muge front office signed younger linebacker Jamian Sherwood to a 3-year, $45 million deal. Williams, the established veteran, the proven All-Pro, was being replaced by a less accomplished player with a larger contract. Williams totaled 83 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 7 passes defensed in just 13 games in 2025, missing 4 games with a shoulder injury. Solid numbers for a player playing through a down season on a team that was pushing him out the door. And then free agency arrived. And the man who had been cast aside by the new Jets regime had choices to make. Multiple teams were in contact. The interest was real. But Williams had already made it known in league circles that there was one place he wanted to go, one situation that felt right, one coordinator whose voice he trusted above anyone else's, one system where he knew he would thrive. Williams had made it known in league circles that he wanted to reunite with Rutenberg, and Cleveland was able to get the job done. Fox News. Mike Rutenberg, the man who had coached him in New York, who had made him an All-Pro, who had seen something in a waiver wire pickup that nobody else in the league had been willing to see. Rutenberg was now the defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns, brought in by Todd Monken as one of the foundational hires of the new coaching staff. And the moment Williams knew Rutenberg was in Cleveland, the decision was made. He was going to be a Brown. The veteran linebacker is joining the Browns on a 2-year deal worth up to $17 million. Williams is reuniting with one of Cleveland's staffers, new Browns DC Mike Rutenberg, who was the Jets linebackers coach from 2021 through 2024 and coached Williams during the same stretch that saw him become one of the league's premier linebackers. Fox News. 2 years, up to $17 million. For context, the Bears gave Devin Bush 3 years and $30 million, with $21 million guaranteed. Quincy Williams cost Cleveland significantly less money on a deal 1 year shorter for a player who was a first-team All-Pro as recently as 2023. The value of that contract, relative to what Williams accomplished at his peak, is extraordinary. And the reason it was available at all is that the Jets' mishandling of his final season, the benching, the displacement, the new regime's lack of interest in him, all of it depressed his market enough that Cleveland could acquire genuine All-Pro talent at a price that fits within the cap constraints of a franchise still paying $44.9 million to a quarterback who has not played a competitive snap in 17 months. The Browns quickly pivoted to Williams after losing Bush, agreeing on a 2-year deal confirmed by a source. Landing Williams will ease the sting of the Bush loss. The 29-year-old spent the last 5 years with the Jets, starting 73 of 78 games. ABC News. Cleveland gets a proven player to replace Bush at a cheaper price point than the $30 million that Chicago gave Bush over 3 years. Together, Williams and Carson Schwesinger form a very formidable second level to the Browns' defense, who are looking to pick up right where they left off last year. The Browns make a major splash on day one of free agency. Military.com. For the Browns, Williams comes in as a direct filler for the void that Bush left next to Carson Schwesinger. Together, those two form a very formidable second level to the Browns' defense, who are looking to build on last year's number 4 ranking. The Browns make a major splash on day one of free agency. But the Williams signing was not the only significant move Cleveland made on the first day of free agency, because while the linebacker situation was being resolved, the offensive line was simultaneously being rebuilt in a way that tells you exactly where Todd Monken's priorities lie heading into 2026. Almost every Browns starting offensive lineman from 2025 was set to hit free agency. 6 offensive linemen, 4 Week 1 starters. The unit that PFF had ranked dead last in the entire NFL was walking out the door simultaneously. And Cleveland's first offensive line move of the day came before noon, a trade for Houston Texans right tackle Tytus Howard that had already been completed the week before, announced as the legal tampering window opened. Then, just before 2 in the afternoon, the Browns agreed to terms with former Los Angeles Chargers guard Zion Johnson on a 3-year, $49.5 million contract with $32.4 million guaranteed. Johnson, 26, was the number 17 pick of the Chargers in 2022 out of Boston College and has started 65 of 66 games in his 4-year career. $49.5 million for a guard. That is an investment that tells you everything about how Todd Monken and Andrew Berry are approaching this rebuild. They're not patching holes. They are not signing journeymen on 1-year prove-it deals and hoping for the best. They are making real financial commitments to young, talented players who can anchor a rebuilt offensive line for the next 3 years. Johnson is 26 years old. He has started 65 of 66 career games. He plays through injuries. He shows up every Sunday. And he is now locked into Cleveland through at least 2028. The Browns were also dealing with the uncertainty surrounding veteran guard Joel Bitonio, who has not yet announced whether he will return for a 13th season or retire. The 34-year-old Pro Bowler has been one of the most respected offensive linemen in Cleveland's history. Whether he comes back determines whether Johnson slides to left guard, replacing a Hall of Fame caliber player, or competes for the right guard spot that has also been open since Wyatt Teller's departure. The offensive line picture is still being assembled, but the direction is clear. The Browns are building a real line, not borrowing one, not assembling veterans on their last legs and hoping the tape matches the reputation. They are committing real money and real draft capital to protecting whoever plays quarterback in 2026, Watson, Sanders, or someone acquired in the next few weeks, because Monken's offense cannot function without pass protection. And for the first time in years, Cleveland is actually paying for it. What emerges from everything that happened on day one of the 2026 NFL free agency period is a picture of a franchise that finally, for what feels like the first time in a long time, knows what it is doing. Berry lost Devin Bush. He did not overpay to replace him with a lesser player. He went and found the right player, a former All-Pro who specifically wanted to play for this defensive coordinator, on a deal that costs less than what Bush is making in Chicago. He started rebuilding the offensive line with a legitimate starting guard on a real contract. He secured a right tackle in a trade before free agency even opened. The quarterback situation remains unresolved. Watson is still on the roster. Sanders is still preparing. Dylan Gabriel's future is still unclear. The franchise is going into 2026 with enormous uncertainty at the most important position in professional football. But on the defensive side of the ball, on the side of the ball that finished 4th in the league and kept this team competitive in games it had no business being competitive in, the response to losing Devin Bush was as clean and as decisive as any move this franchise has made in recent memory.